saving system settings and game progress on the memory card.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Saving Progress, where we hope to learn a little bit more about our personal history with video games. I am your host, Addy, and with me today, I have a guest that is as iconic as he is bold with his words. He's a fan of art in the most general sense of the definition, but he is also a musician, with the bass guitar being his most dominant instrument. He has experience on and off the stage, and more times than not has something insightful to say when it comes to music, art, and especially video games. So I think that makes him a fantastic fit for the show. And without further ado, allow me to welcome my good friend Connor to the show. So, Connor, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. That was a very kind introduction you had for me.
I appreciate that. I mean, I didn't want to make it like anything super vague. Like, I was going to put like a guest that never fails to leave his mark, but like, I don't know, it comes across as a little vague, and it doesn't encapsulate what you could do, you know. So
yeah, I mean, but honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect.
Yeah,
because like, you know, the way you title the episodes is like name the something.
Something. Yeah. No, I get you. I was probably gonna like go the generic route for that though. I was gonna probably put you as Connor the bassist.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Yeah,
does that work for you?
It's kind of what I expected.
Perfect.
At the same time, not knowing what to expect.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I mean, you already answered my question. How are you doing?
Yes.
What do you want to ask me? Maybe I should ask that.
Did you do anything interesting before starting the podcast? I mean, I know you usually ask your guests that.
True. Well, I didn't really do a whole lot today outside of I was actually finalizing the script here, but I spent some time with family. We actually got together, had some dinner for the first time in a while. Like all of us actually getting together on the same table. So that was kind of nice. But other than that, yeah, no, I mostly just being productive, enjoying the weather, to be honest. Like honestly, now that spring feels like it's in like full swing, I'm like actually in a good mood. Like
same.
Overall, I'm just 100% over the snow. Like, I know there will be rain, but I will admit I've already gotten sunburned twice, so I guess we'll just see how it goes from there. But, I mean, did you do anything special today? Like, since we're on the subject, anything eventful lately?
No, not really.
Okay.
Pretty average day in the life.
Honestly, I mean, not every day needs to be revolutionary, you know?
I mean, this is kind of like the big thing for me today.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, you know, that you were looking forward to it at least.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of summarizing things like days, I guess the first thing that I'd like to do here is to ask you this question that I ask every single guest on the show, just so you can put it into your own words, so that I'm not the only one saying things about you. Who is Connor? Help us paint a picture as to who you are, if you will.
I mean, I'm still trying to figure that out myself, for the most part.
Yeah. I can agree with that. But I mean, what can you tell me about like the music side of things? Obviously, I talked about, you know, you being a fan of bass, but what you also want to produce music too? Like, is that right?
Well, I mean, I am in a band, a metal band.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what we were supposed to be.
Yeah. True.
I am in school technically still, like for to work as like an audio engineer.
Okay. So, like, recording other bands kind of thing?
Yeah.
I mean, other than music, you know, what else do you like doing for fun? We talked about a little bit about art, but, like, you know, what are your favorite places to go or things to see? Like, what do you do?
Dude, my favorite places to go. Man.
I mean, if you got a free day or you want to, like, plan something ahead of time, you know, you called into work and you're like, you know what, I need this day off. What are you doing on that day?
I don't know. I mean, if I plan something, that's usually like kind of interesting, but try not to make it like the same thing all the time.
Sure.
I mean, I like going to museums and stuff.
Like art museums, I assume.
Recently, I went with some of our other friends out into the woods. We just like explored in like I mean, I didn't do this, but the others were like eating plants off the ground because like
Okay.
one member of our party was pretty knowledgeable about like what is edible and what is just a plant and what
Just
can kill you
different-
out there.
Different leaves and like twigs and shit.
Yeah, so
okay.
like it was like, hey, what's this? And it's like, oh, you can't eat that. Like the leaves are toxic, but there's an apple that will grow in late summer that is edible, but only if it's all yellow and no green. And it's like, otherwise it'll kill you if you eat it. It's like, okay.
Honestly, like I feel like not too many people know that kind of stuff. So like that, that comes across as like valuable knowledge. Maybe not like in that exact moment, but in an apocalypse or something, you're definitely going to want to know someone who knows their stuff. So
I mean, I feel like that's like one of those things that people might have an interest in but don't necessarily share. So when you learn it, it's like very interesting and like gives you a deeper respect for that person.
No, I can see that, definitely. So I mean, I would assume like outside of foraging for things in the woods with your friends, are you going to concerts and stuff? I mean, like I know for a fact that I love going to concerts as a musician. So
dude,
like, is that?
I'm actually trying to put a greater emphasis on that in my life because the past couple of years I've missed really good concerts that I had opportunities to go to, but for whatever reason I either decided I couldn't or picked something else over it, and I regret it to this day. I mean, I've already gone to a few concerts this year, even if I don't even know the artist. Like a friend of mine just invited me out to a concert on my birthday that I had never even heard of any of the artists performing, and I went and it was really fun.
Was it like a local band or something?
No, it was a touring artist. It was a rap concert, which was my first one of those.
Huh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, I've got a couple big concerts coming up this summer and fall. Really looking forward to.
Yeah, I haven't been to too many as of recently, but I do have a cool one coming up. It's another metal show that I'm pretty excited for. But I mean, other than that, like you said that was like a genre you had never experienced for. Like I remember sometime last year I went to like a jazz show, like not even like here locally, but like I drove like 2 hours away to get there, and that one was it for starters was not what I expected, but secondly it was amazing. Like I loved every bit of it. And then locally speaking, listening to local bands is like one of my favorite things to do, just because like the amount of like creativity that comes out of like that your in like immediate sphere, I think it's just super interesting. Even if it's not like I don't know, amazing recording quality or whatever, you can tell that like someone did it because they enjoy doing it, and I think that's what I like about it the most.
I was just about to say, like, I don't think we've ever been to a concert together, but you and I went to the, I think, most recent concert I've been to.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, I do remember that one. And that wasn't that long ago either.
No, and it actually ended up being way better than I expected.
Oh yeah. For context, the band was Intervals, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was not expecting to enjoy, because Intervals is, from my understanding, like 99% instrumental, if not 100% instrumental. So I expected to just kind of vibe, like I've been to like Animals as Leaders concerts and things like that, but going to that show, and like even with them being like the headliner, like they were the last ones on that night, I was still like just popping off at this like instrumental, like they were doing such a good job keeping everyone just like jazzed up and like super hyped throughout the whole entire thing, even though there's like no like vocalist, no words being spoken. Like some people, they go to those kind of shows because they appreciate the musicianship, like they appreciate the instrumental aspect of it. But I feel like even if you don't, you probably still would have enjoyed that show. Like it was really that good. And yeah. I was having a blast.
Yeah, I know. I saw you. I was standing right behind you, I think, for most of the show. You were really headbanging.
I was definitely getting down. Well, back to the context of the podcast. Long story short, for context, Connor has been planned to be on the show multiple times in the past, and every time I asked him if he wanted to be on, like even though he has a wide history with like a bunch of different video games, he couldn't simply narrow it down to only 3 of them. Like, am I doing this description justice, or
I just
Like,
want to say one thing before I answer that question.
yeah.
To the listeners of the show, every time me and Adnan have a conversation, I think like a good 60 to 70% of it is about music, and that holds true even in this format of conversation.
Yeah.
Like right away, I think that conversation has potential to have a good bit of a cut because of how long we went on about it. But
it could be its own episode in and of itself. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, I was having a real hard time.
At first, I thought like you might be doing this like preemptively, like as in like you just don't want to embarrass yourself on the show, but nope, you just had too much to say and not enough games to say them about.
Yeah, I mean, like Hotline Miami was an obvious like, yeah, I could talk about that, and I don't know, it's like easily one of my favorite games, definitely my favorite like short form game.
For sure.
I mean, it's hard to compare that kind of game against something like Skyrim, which honestly would have been one of my games if Steve hadn't taken it.
Yes, Steve. How dare you play a game that like half the world's population has already played except for me?
I know. How dare you get on the podcast before me and take what's rightfully mine? I bet I have more hours in the game than him.
You can take that up with him. I don't want to get in the middle of that.
I had a list of things I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to say while I was on here, and the first thing on the list is I want to address in Steve's episode how he repeatedly brought up how he's like, cool and not a nerd, and magical games and medieval stuff is for nerds, and then went on to play bass clarinet in the high school marching band.
Yeah, because you guys were in the same class, I think, right?
He's a little younger than me, but we were in band together, and
okay.
And that's just like the first thing that came into my head when I was listening to the episode. I'm like, are you for real right now?
Yeah, take that, Steve. I mean, I know he's just all saying it like ironically, like I think he understands that like liking that kind of stuff makes you a nerd, like, which for anyone listening, like there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, I feel like most of us embrace that pretty well, especially me here on the show. So, Steve, you can take that however you want, For
the record, I just want to say, I think your episode with Steve was my favorite so far. He was a terrific guest.
Well, there you have it. I think that rounds it off pretty well. But for now, I think we should go ahead and just segue into the majority of it. I hope you've taken the time to think about a few games that have really come to inspire you over your lifetime. We already know a few of them right now, but ideally these games that you've chosen are ones that you've chosen because they have left a lasting impression. They're ones that have the privilege of being called your favorites. And to keep things simple, we've narrowed it down to 3 games, but there's no sense in not going the extra mile if the conversation deems it necessary. So, Connor, are you ready to get started?
You know I am.
All right. That's what I like to hear. So, I know we touched on it a little bit already, but let's just go ahead and start with the series that exploded in popularity roughly several years ago, Hotline Miami. For starters, my experience with the game, I actually ended up playing a little bit of the game leading up to this episode, and it was really interesting.
Excellent.
Yeah, I wanted to get a feel for it, but it was a lot more intense than I expected. Like other than that, I know next to nothing about the franchise itself. Of course, I did my research on like a book smarts level to just kind of get myself up to speed. But what can you tell us about it? Like, can you introduce it to us?
I think a common theme you'll find in these games is that they're fast-paced or intense in their gameplay.
Right.
Because I really like that in most media. I like really intense games, or I like intense movies and music. And Hotline Miami is it's an indie game. It's got like the pixelated indie game feel to it.
Yeah, but even though it is like generally revolving around that pixel art style, like it is pretty in depth, like with its animation and just like how fluid it feels.
Yeah, I mean they
I really like that aspect.
I think it's different from a lot of pixel games in that it's not like cute or quirky, and sometimes like the art, especially on the faces, can be quite ugly.
Yeah, like kind of gritty.
Yeah, it seems quite realistic sometimes, or at least as much as a pixel art game can be. I mean, a very defining thing about the games is how violent they are.
Oh,
They're
for sure.
Incredibly violent.
And that was something that I realized like within like the first 10 minutes. I'm like, this is on a whole nother level. Like
Yeah,
regarding
man, like
pixel
you hit
art.
someone with a baseball bat and their head explodes and there's blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And like they might pee their pants, like what happens when people die sometimes. And you shoot someone with a shotgun, like there's an explosion of blood. You slice someone with a katana, you're literally slicing them in half.
Yeah, like there's no getting around it. Like it's about as real as it gets within the format.
Yeah, within the 8-bit format.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also just like incredibly punishing. I don't like. I'm gonna do the thing. I'm gonna compare the game to Dark Souls. But
perfect. I mean, I did actually just recently release a video where I talked about like difficulty, especially pertaining to the Dark Souls series, and the episode before this with Aaron, one of the series that he decidedly talks about is in fact Dark Souls. So if you haven't checked that episode out, I strongly recommend you do, even though it's like 3.5 hours long. You know, get some chores ready. Like if you got to do some laundry, like by all means, definitely check it out. There's a lot to listen to.
Yeah, if you just want to watch Zack Snyder's Justice League, but have it muted the whole time and want to listen to something else, put that episode on.
But you were comparing it to Dark Souls in the sense like difficulty, or
you get hit once by anything and you're dead, and you have to start not the whole level, but like the floor, whatever floor you're on in the level. You gotta start all over.
Yeah. I definitely did notice that.
I've watched videos of people playing this and they get really angry, which is not something I experience. I don't get mad at games like this. It's just like, all right, time to do it again. Like I got that much more of this level figured out.
I can kind of agree with that. Yeah. Like I don't look at a game and I think it's like difficult because the game is, you know, bullshit or whatever it might be. Like I'm playing the game, and if it's a well-designed game, then generally speaking, if I die, it's my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to like how I mentioned my Hollow Knight video, like that was a huge emphasis of it. Like if you die, it's because you're doing something incorrectly, not because the game just like threw something random at you that you weren't expecting.
Yeah, I mean, even if things are random, it's usually like par for the course. Like the whole thing is kind of like that. Like,
yeah,
I think the only annoying random things are kind of like one-offs in an environment that is not so random.
I see. So do you consider Hotline Miami like a hard game then, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a hard time, or I had a pretty easy time with the first game. I mean, I found out about it by watching an entire playthrough of it, so like I knew exactly what to do the first time I played it.
That was going to be my next question, actually. So, like, since you brought it up, what made you interested in the game series? Like, do you remember how you discovered it? It sounds like you do. So.
Yeah. I watched a playthrough on YouTube of it by Sips, if you know who that is.
I don't think so, actually.
He's a member of the Yogscast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never got into Yogscast, but like I definitely know that.
Like way back in the day, I was into that. But
oh yeah.
But he played the game and it seemed really fun. I mean, the music was amazing. I mean, that's like when people talk about this game, they always sing the praises of the soundtrack.
Yeah, even before I owned the game, I had the soundtrack downloaded, so I know exactly what you mean.
It's good stuff. And the whole aesthetic of it was very neon and bright and kind of crazy and wacky, and that also appeals to me. That was in a time in my life where I just wore crazy colors all the time. I wore like wacky graphic t-shirts. And the gameplay, it seemed pretty fun. I mean, not that I'm like super interested in violence, but I was like at the time getting into like Quentin Tarantino films, which are famously violent as well.
Right.
And there's just something,
no, definitely.
There's just something very compelling about that makes, the consequences feel more real.
Yeah, like there's a lot of like weight to what you're doing almost.
Yeah. Whenever you kill an enemy in the game, like the screen flashes white for like one, or like the background flashes white for one frame, like in perfect sync with like the gunshot or like the crunch of the like pipe or glass bottle or whatever you're hitting the enemy with. And it's just like the sound design and like the heaviness of the feeling of whatever implement you're using just really brings home that you're actually like doing something.
And I'm a huge advocate for just sound design in general, because it can I feel like I've said it before, but in case I haven't, like, sound design absolutely can make or break your experience. Like, for example, if we're talking like just strictly sound design comparison to like different games within the series, Smash Brothers, if you compare the sound design behind like some of the new mechanics and just like even just the moves in general, like within like the most recent game, I feel like the sound design in that game, just like every single move has so much more weight behind it than like the previous titles, especially like some of the more casual ones like Smash 64 or Brawl. But those games, like, all you're doing is fighting. And going back to like Hotline Miami, like everything that you're doing within that game, because it's done so well and it's done with this like huge emphasis on realism, like it's making it feel much more heavy than what maybe some other game that had like tried to do something similar. Like, this is something that you subconsciously kind of gloss over when it comes to a lot of games. And I feel like Hotline Miami does a really good job at reminding you of exactly what you're doing. Like, anytime you kill an enemy in a game, whatever, especially in like a Call of Duty, like they're just like a single little speck in like a sea of like black and gray and like, all these like washed out colors, but like
you're like the
in,
god
in Hotline Miami, it's like, exactly. Like when it comes to that game, everything is just so vibrant, so vivid, especially whenever you do end up like killing someone or whatever it might be. There's just this huge emphasis on like what exactly you're doing. And I think that is what really makes it special, just because, not every game is able to remind you of like the things that you're actually doing, because again, that sort of thing is just kind of subconscious as you're moving through the game to kind of like just progress the story, so to speak.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point there, because like the setting of the game is like, it is set in the late 80s and it's like vibrant, and there are like a few levels that are like in a disco. There's all kinds of crazy lights and you are murdering people. Like, it's just this strange juxtaposition.
Just like a huge like vaporwave aesthetic, like combined with just this like hyper violence, almost like to an extent, like you really could consider it that.
Yeah, again, it's like something that is kind of compelling in this strange way. And every good thing I'm saying about Hotline Miami has been improved upon in Hotline Miami 2.
Gotcha.
Which is, I mean, I just want to, it's so good. It's so much better than the first one. Not that the first one isn't great, but the second one is, like, the designers definitely like really figured out what they were doing with the second one.
And that one came out like, I want to say it was like 7 years ago, right? Like somewhere around that mark.
Came out in 2015.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I actually just checked. The sequel came out 7 years ago, but the first game came out in 2012, and that's, as of right now, that's a whole decade ago. Like, damn.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely lost a lot of cultural significance, as an indie game from a decade ago should. But
yeah, I can see that. But like at the same time, it doesn't even feel that old either. Like, especially when you're like playing it yourself, it's aged like significantly well, if you ask me.
Yeah,
I think it's just like, even if you said it like came out like 2 years ago, I think that would still hold up. Like if someone didn't know any better, like it really is that good.
Oh, it's very polished.
Yeah, polished is a good word to
I
say.
was so hyped for the second game to come out. Like, in anticipation of it, I was like doing speed runs of the first one, like making sure I knew all the mechanics super well, like knew how to get a high combo, and
oh wow.
I was just going nuts because I just wanted to play the second one so bad. I was just playing the first one over and over again.
Do you remember when you played the first game? Like, was it in 2015 or was it a little bit later?
It was, I think it was 2013.
Or sorry, I meant, the first one, my bad.
I don't think it was in 2012. I think it was 2013. It was definitely like the second game I ever got on Steam after the next game we're going to talk about.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, they released this one trailer for Hotline Miami 2. Let me just find it real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I just want.
So, I mean, like, you were invested in the game But at that point, you were in it early enough where you were definitely waiting a while in anticipation for the sequel.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really like announce the second one like right after the first or anything. I actually don't remember like when I first heard about it, but I think as soon as this trailer dropped, I was I just so pumped because like the first game, I don't know if you mind me talking about like specific gameplay elements or anything.
No, not at all.
The first game, you're basically one character the whole time, and the only thing that changes in the mechanics is like you get different weapons and you get different masks, which give you slightly different abilities, but don't change the gameplay a ton. And there's like minimal story throughout the game. Not a lot gets revealed in the first game, and in the second game, you play like this whole cast of characters with sometimes wildly different play styles and mechanics. And that was first showcased in the trailer, and
so it's very oriented around this like show don't tell kind of aspect.
Yeah, I mean, like they showed all these characters, and there were like leaks about like who they were and what their story was, and it was like obvious that this game was going to be way more story focused than the last one.
Gotcha.
Like the first one honestly feels like a beta of the second one after playing the second one.
Huh. Okay.
And just like the music they used for the trailer, they just edit it in just the right, like they use different parts of the song in just the right way. And actually, someone made like a fan trailer.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Is it like the German company or?
No, it's someone kind of recreated the Hotline Miami 2 trailer in Source Filmmaker using TF2 characters.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is very appropriate to bring up because TF2 is one of my games I'm going to talk about.
That's right.
And like this released, I don't know, like a month or so after the trailer dropped, and I was like way into TF2 at the time. Like I was my super deep TF2 phase was just before this game came out. So I was like, oh my god, like these.
So that was like the perfect segue at that point.
Yeah,
like,
it was like worlds collide, and it was like I still go back and watch it to this day because it's still like I would get chills watching this back in the day. Not so much now.
Oh yeah. So that moment is almost like my moment with like Sora and Smash Brothers. Like that is like my worlds colliding at that point.
Yeah,
and I don't think it gets any better than that for me, to be honest.
It's like I can't believe that this is a real thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I guess to sort of transition, I might as well ask you, why exactly do you consider this game so important to you? How has this game affected you sort of like in your day-to-day life? Like if it has at all, like do you feel the game has made you think differently in any way? Like has your perspective changed after playing it? Just whatever it might be. Like do you have anything like that?
I don't think it's changed anything foundational about myself, but I think it definitely informed a lot of my tastes in regards to, obviously video games, but other media as well. Because, I mean, as I mentioned before, I was also kind of getting into Tarantino films around this time, which, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have been so into them if I had never played this game. But, I mean, like Kill Bill is like my favorite movie, and there's definitely some comparable things in each medium or each, I don't know, whatever IP, I don't know what to call them because they're different mediums, but
right. I mean, in a way, like you sung some praises about the soundtrack. Do you feel like that also molded your music taste in a way?
Well, the soundtrack is a lot of electronic music,
right?
I don't know, I mean, I've always liked electronic music. I think it just gives me a better appreciation for what the music in a game can be, because games I've played in the past have I don't know, music's not really like a big part of it, or it's just very much a background thing. Like
yeah, definitely.
Like Mario Odyssey, or no, that was not at the time. Mario Galaxy. Like I can't think of any of the music in that.
That's interesting you say that, because the music was actually a huge part of why I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly because it was one of the first Mario games to introduce a live orchestra in the mix. So from my understanding, maybe they only did that for the second one, but I feel like they did do it for the first one too, because they actually released a soundtrack after the fact. But yeah, the whole entire score, from my understanding, is composed completely like for like an actual orchestra, and the music like within the game, like I don't know how old you were at the time when you played it, but when I played it, I noticed that like it was just a lot more bombastic than I was used to. Like I guess just like there's just like huge wave of just this like orchestral like flow to it that I wasn't used to in other Mario games, like especially Mario games. Like Zelda, like all right, like the orchestra kind of fits in those games, but not really from Mario. So
Well,
you know, with Galaxy, like I noticed that. So I think it's interesting that you pointed that out.
I guess I wasn't really a Nintendo kid.
Sure.
I never really played a Mario game before that.
Okay.
And I didn't even really play that much. I was like player 2 all the time.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think if you look back on it like nowadays, like you might be able to see that. Like, I don't mean to just like jump out and like defend Mario Galaxy, because it's not even my favorite Mario game, but I do remember the music being really charming. So
no, it's okay. I mean, like, I guess my at that point in my life, I was pretty young when I was playing Mario Galaxy, but
that's fair.
Previous to that, I was playing like Lego Star Wars, which, you know, has like the John Williams big orchestral score going on in the background. So I guess like, and like that kind of music in a game wasn't like super new to me. Yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of games, the music doesn't really stand out, but in this case it does. I mean, if you look at the Steam reviews, like the soundtrack is rated higher than the game itself. So I mean,
well, I mean, in a way, I guess like what you're saying is that, you know, it wasn't more so like the game influenced your music taste, but rather your music taste influenced your opinion on the game. Like that's kind of what it sounds like.
Maybe.
Because like even if it isn't like even if EDM's not like your favorite genre, like subconsciously like you still enjoyed the music and how well it is incorporated into the rest of the game. So like, you know, the fact that the soundtrack does receive a lot of praise, like I feel like, you know, that's not something to ignore. You know, like that's absolutely like an integral part of what makes this game so good.
It's kind of funny because they're like similar but different. Like the first game, you're like, it's just kind of like you're grooving while you're going around and like killing people with whatever.
Yeah.
But in the second one, it's like some of the music is so intense and like it just like feeds into that frantic intensity, especially because like some of the levels are just so huge and have so many enemies, and you just have to react, and it's like it doesn't really like go along with the kind of play style where like you just like sit in a corner and just like watch like what everyone's routes are and when it's like safe to move from here to there, and like you kill this one guy and you go hide. No, it's like you just run through blasting while it's like like in the background,
just like super thumpy like in the background.
Yeah, and you see that combo number just going up, and it's like,
oh yeah, definitely,
this is how this was meant to be played.
And you know, there is actually a list of video games on a Wikipedia article that basically it lists games that are generally considered the best of their time. And I remembered like subconsciously like I was looking at it for like a script in the past, but I remembered that like going back to it and checking that Hotline Miami is actually on the list of 2012 games.
Really?
And like yeah, like it's like only maybe like 4 or 5 games on that list. And of course like it's Wikipedia, so anyone could edit it, but I thought it was cool that like it was generally considered just like one of the best games out there at the time, alongside other honestly legendary games like Far Cry 3, Journey, and Telltale Games Walking Dead. Like that also came out around the same time. Like those are such iconic games. And the fact is that like some people haven't even heard of Hotline Miami, and like like what is that? Yeah,
it just seems like so niche to me. Like I don't know, when in the rare event that someone finds out that I play video games and they like want to ask me what I like to play, if I ever talk about Hotline Miami, like no one ever knows what I'm talking about.
And that's a shame. It really is. I mean, like maybe back then like someone would know what you're talking about, because then they would at least have like seen it like in the news or something. Maybe, possibly.
You know what else is interesting? I don't think Denaton Games, who are the developers of Hotline Miami series, have introduced. Yeah. They have not released another game.
No, they've not.
It was just those two.
As far as I'm aware, they've only worked on Hotline Miami, and I do actually have a lot of that saved up for the news section of the podcast. Yeah, so we'll definitely have a lot of opportunity to like talk about that specifically. But no, you are right. Like even like on social media, like, you know, they're on there, you know, but they're not posting like super regularly like some of these other companies. Which, I mean, even like TF2, which is the next topic. Well, I mean, do you want to like jump into TF2 right now? We could.
Yeah.
All right.
We've been talking about Hotline Miami for a pretty long time.
True. Well, actually, there is one more thing that I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
And only because I've heard you say this before, but, you know, because I played this game earlier today, you know, I wanted to hear like what you had to say about it now. Do you still believe that the true way to experience the game is with a mouse and keyboard? Like, is that like, does that still reign true?
Yep.
How come?
I mean, I don't know. It could be a bias here because I play almost every game with just a mouse and keyboard. But I mean, I did watch a video of like this group of guys I used to follow. They had a Hotline Miami video. I was like, oh shit, like, I can't believe anyone's playing this game in like 2016 or something, like 4 years after it was released.
Yeah.
And so I watched it, and they were playing it with a controller, and they were just they were just playing it so slow, and I was like, this is almost unwatchable. Like, this is supposed to be a fast-paced, like, intense game, and they're just like can barely move the cursor like fast enough to to react to these enemies because they can't just like flick over with a mouse, you know?
So it's almost like, you know, you're looking at like FPS games. You know, the fact that you're able to just like whip around, like even just 360, like pulling off of those kind of things, more often than not, like that's way easier done on a mouse and keyboard than, you know, changing your settings like on a controller, like with like sensitivity and whatever.
I mean, there is an art to playing an FPS with a controller. Like, I can respect that. I can't do it. I can't use a controller.
It is what I'm used to, I will say. Like,
yeah.
And you'll hear about me talk about that with TF2.
Yes.
Which I know, yeah, you had that on your mind, but you know, for someone like me who isn't used to mouse and keyboard, like, is it still recommended, like, in that case? Because, I mean, when I was playing, like, it wasn't too bad, but it did take me a little bit to get used to. So, like, you know, what do you think? Like, do you still...
So you did use a mouse and keyboard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had to. Like,
yeah.
But I didn't have to. I didn't have to, but, yeah, like, it was just what I opted for because I heard you say that, oh, yeah, you should definitely play this mouse and keyboard.
I don't know. I feel like playing this with a controller would be like playing Dark Souls with a mouse and keyboard, you know? Like, you're just not really supposed to do that.
Okay.
I don't know. As long as you can get used to it and you're enjoying yourself, that's what really matters. I mean, if you want to use a controller and that makes it more enjoyable for you, then, like, you know, whatever. I will just say one more thing about Hotline Miami 2.
Yeah, of course.
The day it came out, like, I think I probably like pre-bought it on Steam and I downloaded it like as soon as I woke up. And the day before, I like told my mom, like, hey, like, tomorrow this game's coming out and I'm just gonna be playing it all day, so you won't see me. So like, please don't like bother me or anything. Like, I want to immerse myself.
Oh man.
And I played through the entire thing. Like, I just played through the whole thing like almost 10 hours straight. I think I got up to go to the bathroom one time. I don't think I ate or drank any water. Like, I just sat in my chair sweating for 10 hours straight.
just front to back, just plowed through it.
Yeah, dude. I just I couldn't stop.
That's amazing.
And I had to start. So
well, I mean, that just gives me more incentive to jump right back in and play it. Maybe not overnight, but we'll see. But for now, yeah, I feel like that's a sufficient amount to be said about Hotline Miami. Now, let's stop there for now and move on to talking about the next game on the list. A little game I like to call Team Fortress 2. So, as we mentioned previously, I do, as a matter of fact. Some people in the gaming sphere even say TF2 colloquially.
Not to be confused with Titanfall 2.
No. But for starters, I mean, we've already said that I've played TF2 with you before.
Yeah.
Mostly because I know how much you love this game, and we just generally needed more multiplayer games to get a hold of during just our time away from each other and like with quarantine. But I gotta say, I I was not good at it at all, and like I don't mind shooters. Like a good campaign or like a story driven game like BioShock is something that I can get into, but for something like TF2, like that was a whole nother universe for me.
Yeah.
And especially going back to the controller conversation, I mean, like I if playing TF2 on a controller is like already like suboptimal, like because I'm not used to mouse and keyboard, I was somehow even worse without a controller than like most people would be.
I mean, TF2 is often referred to as the gateway to PC gaming, and Adnan here was playing it with a controller.
True. But enough about me. Like, what can you tell us about Team Fortress 2? So, like, if someone supposedly had never heard of it, like, how would you go into like introducing it to them?
Well, it's a fast-paced, team-based first-person shooter, and by that I mean it's got fast action. Things happen pretty quickly, which I think is one of the biggest things that make it so fun. Team-based, so it's like the red team versus the blue team.
You kind of have to like work together, sort of thing.
Yeah, it is definitely as the game has aged, the player base has become more like objective oriented, because it's so easy to just be like, oh, I just want to like deathmatch, kill everyone. But
yeah,
I feel like the culture of the game these days is very much like, hey guys, let's push together, let's win.
So there's a lot more of a I guess like camaraderie behind it. Like, you jump into the game expecting to work together with people in order to accomplish something.
I mean, maybe that's just me projecting on my own personal growth on the
No, that's totally fine. But because like people have said, like, for example, like games like Overwatch, where there is similar objectives to be done, like in a lot of cases, like there are a lot of people that are still kind of stuck in that mentality, like, oh, I just want to go in, I just want to shoot people, like I don't really care about the objective, even though that's kind of the point, like within the match. But not everyone has kind of like grasped that mentality. So like, I can kind of see like where you're getting at, just because Team Fortress has been around for such a long time, like you're bound to run into someone who probably has like thousands and thousands of hours within the game itself. And yeah,
I mean,
like
one of the most popular TF2 YouTubers just like posted that he hit 10,000 hours in the game.
God damn,
which is
wow,
crazy. Like,
I mean, I guess if you're a TF2 YouTuber, that,
it's like literally your job.
That kind of ties into it, but but what made you interested in TF2 specifically? Like,
I first started playing during the Man vs. Machine update, which was like the first time it was any PvE elements were introduced to the game, which was a pretty huge deal at the time because for 5 years it was PvP, and then they added like this whole new game mode with all these new maps and like all these different character models. Like you're fighting all these robots now that look just like all the characters from the game. And I was pretty new to PC gaming at the time. I mean, I was just kind of playing Minecraft.
Sure.
During this time of my life, and then a bunch of my friends had played TF2 before, and then this came out, and they were like, "Oh my god, like we need to play this," and like, Connor, why don't you play it with us? Because I think you get like 6 people on a in a group together to fight all the robots, and I think they had like 4 or 5. So I downloaded the game. It was free, and it was really awkward at first because like it was rough to get into because
did you at least like know shooters at the time, or
no, not really.
Okay.
At the time, I don't think I'd ever played an FPS before.
Wow.
I was used to playing games like Lego Racers, Lego Star Wars.
Right, because you said this was back in like 2010, 2011.
Yeah, I mean, like for a long time I didn't really play a lot of games.
Okay.
But Yeah, I was playing a lot of like third person stuff, whatever. Like ATV Off-Road Fury.
Oh, that is a game.
Yeah, Harry Potter games, which are all third person. But yeah, it was rough in the start because it's like, the default settings of the game kind of blow.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't feel like you're doing anything, which is a big part of playing the game. Like, the damage numbers don't show by default. You don't get a hit sound by default. The field of vision is very small by default.
And that might make some sense because I don't remember changing any of my settings when I was playing TF2. So that might explain a few things. I think I you know what? I think I did turn on the ability to like show damage numbers and things like that, just because I was like, wait, why isn't this turned on? I did go into settings, but I didn't mess with like nearly as many things.
I think I might have told you to do that because I think I like realized
probably, honestly,
why you weren't having as much fun, because that is like such a big deal in the game. And as soon as I mean years later when I finally realized you could do this, I did it and immediately I had more fun in the game.
I've just never been like a multiplayer, like at least like online multiplayer kind of guy at all. Like even in games like Smash Brothers, like where I'm not like bad, but I'm not like pro level. Like even so, like I don't find myself playing nearly as much online as like some other people do.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, like I do want to enjoy the game because like my experience with TF2, just like outside of actually playing the games, like I'll be completely honest, it's mostly from those like source filmmaker animations, just like everything that's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like those were my bread and butter back in the day. They were right alongside just like the golden age of YouTube poops and other just dumb random humor that was just silly for the sake of being silly.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the stuff that I knew TF2 for. And like I don't know, did that have any influence with you? Like I am like genuinely curious. Like
I mean, I think it's a reason why I've stuck with it, because it does have this certain aesthetic that not a lot of other games have. I mean, like a lot of shooters have like the Halo or like Call of Duty like militaristic feel to it, and that just isn't super interesting to me. Whereas TF2 is kind of like cartoony and it has very iconic character design. Like
I think they almost went like a realistic route with TF2 as well.
Yeah, they were gonna do like an alien theme, like aliens are invading and you gotta defend against them or whatever. But
glad they didn't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were saying just like the characters themselves, like I mean
like,
absolutely, they're like super iconic.
You know the scout when you see him, you know the heavy when you see him, probably know the spy when you see him. It's just a very identifiable art style, and
identifiable piece of media in general, actually.
Yeah, and in a kind of weird link here, I think that is also a factor in the success of Fortnite, because it kind of has a similar thing going there. It's,
you know what?
It's
like I never really put those two together, even though they functionally act very similarly.
I mean, I'm sure that's a reason why like so many kids are into the game, because it's got more of like a cartoony art style. It's got like these vivid colors. I mean, obviously, like the building is like unique to that game, or at least it was at the time.
But also, you can play as like Travis Scott and like Ariana Grande in Fortnite. Like
or like a big fish.
Yeah, like you're not getting that in TF2 anytime soon. But
well, I mean,
that would be something. Let me tell you.
I mean, at the start, when the developers were adding cosmetics, they were like only adding like, because the game's set in like the 60s or 70s or something.
Yeah,
like,
I do remember that.
We'll have the scout like look like a baseball player, like old timey baseball player, and like the spy gets a special cloak or like, I don't know, whatever. And then like now you can turn the sniper into a kangaroo, or like the heavy into a bird, or like the pyro, like his head is a giant light bulb, and you can ride around in a bumper car and
I think that's
do whatever else.
I think that's also how they decided on the voices for the characters too, because like you mentioned, like the whole like 1960s kind of thing. Like I think they all just kind of sat down and they were like, okay, what would this guy sound like? Like they pull up a picture of Scout and be like, they just kind of think of like how he would sound in like a 1960s environment. and then like, you look at the heavy,
Bonk.
like, how's this dude how's this dude gonna sound in comparison? Like, overall, if anything about it stands out, it's definitely the characters, because for me, like, I had never even touched the game until you had me try it like a couple of years ago. But leading up to that point, like, everything that I knew about it was through those like animations, and especially like because there is like official media as well, like there is like
Oh yeah,
Meet the Spy is one that I remember fondly, and like
they have incredible animated stuff.
definitely.
I mean,
Do you remember the Saxy Awards? Like, do you know anything about that?
I've never watched them. Like, I'm aware of them, and I have watched like some of the winners of it, and some of the stuff's pretty good.
Gotcha. Yeah, I do remember seeing like a few of those. Some of them are actually pretty impressive. I looked into it a little bit. I didn't realize that it was actually like a thing put on by Valve. I thought it was just like a fan-made thing, but apparently like the people who won those competitions, they received like exclusive items, and like the best overall winner was actually like flown to Valve headquarters to meet the team behind like Source Filmmaker. Like, honestly, like that, I think that's just super awesome that like they embraced this goofiness so hard,
So, the trailer I mentioned before, like the fan-made TF2 Hotline Miami trailer, which is called Hotline Fortress 2, pretty sick name, is actually created by someone who I think is a Saxy winner, and this particular artist is I've always been like impressed with how fluid they make the movements of the characters.
You'll have to send me that, because like it sounds super interesting.
I'll send it to you right now.
And like I might as well, since we've been talking about it, I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description for anyone listening, if you want to check that out for yourself, just so you can be up to speed. But yeah, no, that sounds super interesting. I know for a fact that like like when I think of like Source Filmmaker and like the like especially in regards to like the Saxy Awards, I remember there was one video that I watched. I don't even think that this thing won, but it was like someone edited that one Eminem song, Love the Way You Lie, and they did it with Pyro singing the main melody, and then it was just like Scout voice clips like interlaced like where the rap would normally be, and it's just done like so well because it's just Love the Way You Lie and then Pyro and Scout just rapping over this beat. Like, it was actually pretty incredible.
Scout voice actor like streams and everything, and he just like he'll like stream in character with the Scout and like say stuff in the voice all the time. He's like always creating these new voice lines for people to use in whatever content they want to throw the Scout in. Just
like memes and stuff. Like, yeah, like that's the other thing I was going to mention. Like, it's honestly incredible like how relevant the series still is today, with games like these that have a huge focus on like multiplayer gameplay. More often than not, like they just kind of pop up and like move on as like a passing trend. You'll have like your scragglers that like stick around, but like TF2 is like you said, like 15 years old. It's still going really strong.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
Especially within just the meme culture in general. Like,
it's interesting. It's like also amazing considering that it hasn't had a major update in 5 years. It's essentially been abandoned for a third of its entire lifespan.
Wow, has it really been that long?
Yeah. The last big update, Jungle Inferno, which like revolutionized like the Pyro playstyle, but not really. Was in 2017, and it was like at the time it was like, oh yeah, several more updates coming down the line, and like nothing major has happened since. Like there's patches here and there, but like
wow,
people often joke like the last TF2 developer like in their office trying to figure out why this JPEG of a coconut is holding the entire game together, which is a real thing, by the way.
Oh man. I'll have you save that bit for the news segment, just because I do have a little bit that actually ties into that. Just like the whole Valve's like involvement with the series and just everything to do with that. But like I'm trying to figure out a good way to segue this. Speaking of things that stick around, there we go. That's a good one. I think you know where I'm going with this. I want to hear you sell this game. So why should our listeners play TF2? Why should I play TF2 with my controller and all, you know? The only catch, though, is that you need to do it within 10 words or less. And I know you've heard other people do it before, so now it's your turn. And my main concern here, though, is if you can get me to play it, you know, get your audience to play it, I want to hear you make it happen. But overall, I recommend counting them out on your fingers, but regardless of how you do it, 10 words or less. You think you can do it?
I think I might go less.
Less? You know what? Some people have gone for the simple approach. And if you think you want to do that, I'm okay with that.
You know, a couple months ago, after I'd picked every game, I had thought of a 10 words or less for every single one of them just in case. And I forgot what they all were.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I'm just
this is a true fan of the podcast right here. He was ready.
I prepared and then forgot all my preparation because I didn't write anything down.
Perfect. Well, I think spontaneity is the best way to I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyways, 10 words or less. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot. Starting now.
Fast-paced shooter.
Okay.
Fun aesthetic. It's very replayable.
All right, that's 8 there. You want to stop it there?
I do. Those are not my last 2 words. I'm just agreeing. Yes, I do want to stop there.
Well, if I were to add 2 more words to it, I would definitely add plus hats, and then we'll leave it at that.
Man, I forgot about that entire aspect of the game. That's just like, you know, like 7 years ago when I got all the hats I wanted from my characters, I stopped caring.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Before we stop talking about this game, because I feel like we didn't actually talk about the gameplay too much, I just want to say that there is a video by a TF2 YouTuber, or TF-tuber, as they're commonly referred to, called Lazy Purple. What's it called? It's called like TF2, Team Fortress 2 is a masterpiece or something. And it's kind of like a mini dissertation on why it's such a great game.
Okay.
Yeah, TF2 is a timeless masterpiece. That's what it's called.
Okay.
He kind of breaks it down into excellent movement and fun sound design. Because it's a fast-paced game. It's high mobility. Lots of different classes have lots of different, movement options. And same with Hotline Miami. It's like the sound design is like you shoot your gun and like you feel like you shot the gun and you feel like you hit the enemy because like you shoot when it hits the enemy. It's like ding, and it's like I definitely shot that guy.
Yeah. No, I do remember that aspect of it, like where it's like one of the few games where it actually makes a sound upon impact. Not too many shooters really do that aside from the dude just being like, but, having that ding pop up like, oh yeah, I definitely got this dude.
Ooh, especially with a crit too, like.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll have to play again though. I'll crit you or something. Medic is my favorite class though. I'll just put that on the record.
Well, there you have it. Yeah. There's your player. I guess that's your main then. Do they use that for TF2?
Yeah. There's like a whole
gotcha
culture of like, oh, what's your main or whatever.
And I think because I mentioned the whole hat thing, like honestly, I didn't know this going into like my research about the topic, but the item trading mechanic is so big that to many people it's actually considered like its own economy, like within the world. Like these people just trading like what I can only assume are just cosmetic things and like different weapons and things like that. Like it's actually been a focus for many academic papers and like for a lot of like financial economists and like other levels of study. Like it's that big, and I had no idea how in depth it was, and it's a huge part of the game. So like, I wanted to hear like what you had to say about it.
It scares me, honestly, the Steam marketplace. It's so convoluted, and like I've bought and sold things on there before. I usually just sell things like below market value just to get rid of them.
Yeah, like things you don't want.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, and I've bought a few things that I probably shouldn't have on there that were like nothing too expensive, but like I don't know. I think I bought like a hat with like a special hat for like $10. It's like, why don't I just buy this virtual thing for $10? Like, it's not like I'm buying a game and I'm gonna play it for however many hours. Like, it's literally just a cosmetic.
Yeah, you could buy. I mean, next game on the list, you could buy Terraria for $10, or you could buy some sweet hat for your medic. You know?
Yeah, I mean, these days you will not catch me performing any microtransactions that
treasonous
so
acts
dumb.
Such as microtransactions.
I mean, I know it like supports these free to play games or whatever, but it's just
no.
silly.
I'm with you on that one, but I mean, at least you didn't buy some of the items that are, because what I also found out is that there are some items that are valued extremely high.
Yeah.
In real world currency, like from the examples that I saw, Burning Flames team captain valued at approximately $7,000, give or take. But
team captain.
Yeah.
Golden pan.
Yes, strange golden frying pan was around $2,000, and then
I have something to say about that actually.
Okay.
The golden weapons in the game are things that you only get by playing Man versus Machine, the PvE mode. You do a tour of duty, and like you have to pay for that, but in return you get these like super rare items, and the pan is the rarest of them all, and they drop so rarely. And the last time one was dropped, the guy got the video of it, and the first thing he said was like, "Oh, like I can put my kids through college now." And
wow.
A minute after that drop, because whenever those drop, everyone currently playing the game gets a notification, like in game.
Interesting. I had no idea.
Like within a minute of him getting that item, he got so many friend requests on Steam of like Steam like marketplace people that like actually make money off of trading on the Steam marketplace. Like they're probably gonna like scam him out of the pan or something,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure. But like I was gonna say, like, does that mean that they're willing to spend like $2,000 on this thing, or
definitely.
Is it like,
and they think they're gonna turn a profit or something?
It was like, damn, that's like NFTs before they became a real.
I know.
Like, that's insane. Oh man. Like obviously I use Steam, but like anytime I got like an item that I could sell, I pretty much did like what you did, was just sell it to get rid of it, and then I get like, I don't know, like 3 cents to put towards a game or some shit. Like,
yeah.
Like it's not really anything that I would consider myself like in necessarily, but
I think the only
I had no idea that it was that deep.
I think the only things I don't regret buying on the Steam marketplace are there's like trading cards for the different games.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get them all for a game, you get like a special badge or something. I think I did that for Hotline Miami only, and that's because that game only has 6 cards, and I got 2 of them just by buying the game. So
yeah, a lot of the things that I have are just from like buying it, and I guess like maybe like doing some achievements within the game.
And they're each like 10 cents as well, so it's not like I'm blowing money out here on trading cards on Steam.
And the fact that I don't even really play games that much on Steam to begin with, like, it's just something that eludes me. But good for that dude for being able to put his kid through college with a JPEG. But
I mean, it is a usable item within a 3-dimensional virtual environment.
No, I get it. Yeah, but to I guess like round this topic off just so that we can move on. The last thing I want to ask you is why is TF2 so important to you? Like, why is it one of your favorite games? Like, has this game affected you in a significant way?
No, I wouldn't say it has, but and this is the case for actually all 3 of these games. It was I really got into it during a very impressionable part of my life, and playing these games was kind of a way for me to experience a kind of freedom that I had never had before, because it was kind of when I first went to college and I had my own computer and all this stuff, and I just had so much fun playing these games whenever I wanted, as much as I wanted, and I will always have very fond memories of
and not only that, just like playing with friends, that's in and of itself like just such an important thing to a lot of people.
Well, I have a lot of trouble trying to get people to play, particularly our friends, like to play games that I like with me, and out of all of them, I think I've had the hardest time getting people to play TF2 for some reason, even though literally every single one has played this game before and enjoys it.
And you know what? Like, it's a shame because like it's a game that like I have prior knowledge of, like, especially how I mentioned, like, the whole, like, source filmmaker kind of stuff. Like, I am fully aware of this game and, like, what it entails, aside from the marketplace, apparently. But, like, it's just, it's the game itself is not really my thing. And maybe I have to do something where it's, like, a bunch of, like, CPUs on screen instead, so I don't feel as pressured to, like, perform with a bunch of, like, dudes who have, like, again, like, thousands of hours in the game. But like,
I mean, it's,
I think a lot of it is mental for me, and it's not that I don't like the game, it's just not my jam, like, usually.
it's funny because it's like, for how long it's been, there's a shocking number of brand new players that, like, I'm sure there's like a ton of like 7 or 8 year olds like playing the game that like have no idea what they're doing, and
Yeah, true.
they're just like playing spy because he looks cool, but he's like, they don't know actually how to like trick anyone, so they just like get killed all the time. And it's like
Yeah.
kind of funny and kind of cute at the same time, like an engineer that just like doesn't know how to place a sentry properly, or like is just doing silly stuff and walking into walls.
No, I understand.
I will say one of my fondest memories of this game are, and one of my earliest memories, I want to say this is like the first time that I really enjoyed this game, was one night it was just me and our friend Tyler were playing this game together, and we were playing, we were on opposite teams, and I was playing the Demolition Man, who's like the explosive class. And I just kept setting traps in this one area, and Tyler was just like, I'm gonna get you. And he just kept walking into it over and over. And I just kept blowing him up. We were just both laughing so hard because we were just like getting goofy, and it was just so much fun. But yeah, that was the first time I was like really, really enjoying myself in this game.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's really nice.
He doesn't play games anymore though, so.
Well, he might be on a future episode, so we can
I hope he
definitely
is.
touch on that a little bit more.
I'd be curious to see what he says. I'm sure he'll talk about BioShock.
Yeah, he might talk about that. He might. I mean, I feel like he would also touch on Pokemon, even though that's definitely. I have like 2 or 3 people lined up that are 100% going to talk about Pokemon. So I need to figure out how to make Pokemon interesting to like like 3 times over. But the fact is that it's just such a influential franchise. It's kind of hard to avoid. But we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic. So if you're ready for that, we can jump in.
Yeah, I am.
Perfect. And now I got to think of a way to segue it. So
you could just have a big awkward gap and be like, well, anyway.
Yeah, honestly. Well, with all that out of the way, I think now is a good time to stop and move on to the third and final topic of this episode, a game that some of you might be aware of, but others may be hearing about it for the first time here. So let's move on to talking about Terraria. Or is it Terraria? Do you know?
I say Terraria.
Terraria? I think I like that better anyways, so if I make anyone mad, sorry, leave it in the comments. But
I mean, I know like it's kind of based off of the word terrarium.
Yeah.
But I think Terraria just sounds weird.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, let us know what you think down below. But for starters, like, I'll be honest, I don't have any experience with this game. Nor do I really dive too deep into these, like, there's just genre, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
These kind of games that have no real direction to them, like, especially, I'm sure it'll come up a lot, but Minecraft, I never got into Minecraft.
Oh.
And I know you're super into Minecraft, but nonetheless, like, there's no denying that it has had a significant impact on just gaming culture and indie game culture in general. So, what can you tell us about it?
Well, I do want to disagree with one statement you said there. It does have a, maybe not super clear direction, but it does have a very succinct kind of progression through the game.
Okay, yeah. Fill me in.
Well, I guess the core of the game is killing bosses. Like, that's kind of what the whole game is about. You gear up, you kill a boss, you reap the benefits, and then you gear up to fight the next one. And there's a lot. I mean, there's a bunch of story ones, and then there's like I say story very loosely. There is no story.
Yeah.
There's like a bunch that you kind of have to kill to kind of like either get certain materials to progress or like change the world in some way, or like make different parts of the world accessible. And then there's some that you don't have to kill. There's very few, but there's some that you just get good stuff from and are completely optional. But yeah, that's kind of the core of the game. I mean, I know a lot of people say it's like 2D Minecraft, but it's like so different.
It sounds like it's a lot more combat oriented than Minecraft really is.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say, to me personally, Minecraft's more of like a building thing.
Is the term? I guess I should ask: is sandbox the term that like you use for these kind of games? Like,
yeah,
games that you can just kind of do whatever you want in them, so to speak.
Yeah, it's like a catch-all game or term. I mean, you can build very beautiful things in Terraria. I, for one, have never done that. I just always build ugly box houses for me and all my NPCs.
Sure, just whatever works, right?
I mean, they've introduced like so many. This game has so much stuff in it.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've come to notice.
Like, you can buy a lawnmower from the golfer NPC and mow the grass to turn it into like a golf course.
Damn.
Which is something I will never do. This is literally my most played game on Steam, and there are some things in this game that I have not done and will never do.
How many? Do you know how many hours by chance?
1014.5.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, that is a fan of Terraria.
It's too many. I'm not proud, but
well, I mean, yeah, it's not always an accurate metric of how like into a game someone is, because like there are a lot of people that just let their games idle. Like they'll run to the store and back, and they'll just let their game literally run while they do it. Like to some people it doesn't make any sense, but like it absolutely does happen.
I don't really do that, so I'd say it's a pretty accurate portrayal.
Sure.
But yeah,
I mean that just proves that there is enough in the game to like hold up that kind of experience, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different play styles too, because there's like 4 classes, I guess you could call them, and these are all based on what damage types are available for you to inflict. There's like the melee, there's the range damage, there's magic damage, and then there's summoner damage. So you can kind of do any 4 of those broad classes, but within them there's kind of like a lot of options, because there's like so many different melee weapons, so many different magic weapons. It allows for a lot of exploration and diverse playing styles. So
okay, that
in turn kind of allows for a lot of replayability. I mean, like I'm playing on like, I want to say like my 4th or 5th time through the game, and I'm playing in a way that I never have before, and in like a different mode too. It's like a harder mode, but
okay. And I mean, I hate to make comparisons all the time, but like, you know, in a way, it almost sounds like how like you wanted to talk about Skyrim. Like in Skyrim, you know, you're choosing your class, you're choosing your I guess race in that instance. Like, you know, you're making yourself into your own character with its own designated role, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know if Terraria goes into that much depth, like, but it does sound like there is a pretty cohesive like world building aspect to it.
Yeah, I mean there's no lore really. To me the fun of it is like progressing through the tiers, especially like the armor. Like to me the armor just kind of looks cooler and cooler like the higher tier it is, and there's like 14 or 15 tiers of armor or something.
Okay. That makes sense.
And like there's even more in the weapons, you know. There's like, oh man, I'm switching from like, what's a good example? I'm switching from this gun that shoots falling stars to this one that shoots bees. Like a swarm of bees. Or like I'm switching from, you know, like a sword that you swing it and it shoots like an energy sword out of it, to literally hitting my enemies with a yo-yo.
And are these just like random examples, or are these like actually things you can do in the game?
No, these are really like, yo-yos are melee weapons in the game, and you can like,
wow.
Oh, I'm done with this flail or axe or whatever. Like I found this yo-yo that does more damage, so I'm gonna use that. And people have done playthroughs where they only use the tree, like the yo-yo progression to beat the entire game. And that's because like those were added to the game because the like main creator of the game, he's like a big yo-yo enthusiast in real life.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so he's like added, all these like random yo-yo designs or whatever, but he's also added like one that's like named after him, and it's like I guess it's based on one he has in real life.
I mean, considering his position with it, he could do whatever he wants at that point.
Yeah, he can.
That's super cool though. I had no idea. Well, like I've also heard it described as just like a 2D Minecraft, but from what you're saying, like it definitely sounds like it's way more than that. And like I did like enough research about it. Like I saw all of the, I guess, like intricacies behind making like certain like crafting and getting different like clothing styles, different options for like what materials you're using specifically. Like you can build specific things out of different materials. Like you don't have to specifically use like one set of materials for something. Like like I don't know, you can make a dresser out of obsidian if you really want to. Like that's something that like I thought was kind of cool, because like I don't know how useful that specific example is. I'm tripping over my words, but the fact is that like it just opens up so much more diversity in that aspect, not only like with the crafting, but also just like what you can do with those crafted elements. And I think that's pretty neat.
On my most recent playthrough of the game, I discovered something interesting. So you can craft whatever kind of furniture, and you can also craft toilets. And there is this particular weapon in the game that's like one of the most powerful swords in the game. It combines like, I don't know, like 10 other swords together into one.
Oh, wow.
And it's like you get them ready for like the last step, and the last step requires like this one particular ingredient from this one enemy that doesn't appear until like really late in the game. And you use that to make the sword, but you can also use it to make a toilet that is the same color scheme as the sword.
Okay.
And the tooltip is literally like, you really made this? Like you really used all that for this?
And I mean, like, does a toilet really serve a purpose in the game, or is it?
Nope. You just sit on it just like a chair. You can't flush it or anything. I mean, your character doesn't.
Okay, that gives a little more context. Yeah. Yeah, your character does not utilize it properly.
It is literally a waste of resources.
That's pretty funny.
The fact that it's something you can do, they've just added so many fun little quirky things into the game.
Well, considering the amount of time that you spent on this game, why is this game so important to you? Is this game something that has your perspective been changed after playing it? Like, what can you tell me about that?
I think it's a very imaginative game. It's very creative in its weapon design and its boss design. I don't know. I just think that's really cool, and probably will influence, if I like say I play D&D or something, like that, it might influence some creative decisions that I would make, whether I'm like actually in charge of like coming up with something, how something looks, or like just how I imagine things happening in my head. Like if I want to, like, I don't know, there's just so much, and I think really creative and diverse things like that really kind of stimulate my imagination.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you like the fact that the game can kind of like, not only are you playing it, but you're also just kind of like wondering and thinking about like what's the next step, like obviously you're doing everything that's in the current moment, but there's just so much within the game that it's like, oh, what if I did this, or what if I did this?
I mean, like, honestly, the first time I like really played through the whole game, it was probably the most fun I've had playing the game, because it was like everything was new and everything was a little more scary than it is now.
Oh, of course.
Like, you don't know how hard these things are going to be.
Yeah.
And like you don't know what the items do yet. I mean, like you kind of do, because it's almost impossible to play this game without having the wiki open like at all times.
I see.
There's just so much, and the game tells you almost nothing. But yeah, I mean, like it just always feels like there's some discovery happening, and it's always exciting to see what comes next. And the fact that there are so many different play styles in this game means that you can just experience that again and again.
No, definitely. Like from what I remember reading, it was like you can pick your different, like, I don't know if biome is the correct word, but like you can choose like what world you're entering almost.
Oh yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like that
kind of.
that changes your bosses and things like that. Like is that true?
It changes one boss and a bunch of smaller enemies, and it changes a bunch of items that you can get, but it's not like a huge difference. I mean,
Okay.
it's just like one part of the world that's different, but it is still an important choice, and it is kind of like they look pretty different depending on which one of them you want to go with. I don't know. I think one of them's cooler than the other, but
Which one, if you don't mind saying?
So the choice is like between the two evil biomes. Every world comes with an evil biome, and there's the corruption, which is like purple, and the theme is like decay. And that was the one that was in the game when it first came out. And then there's also the crimson, which is like, red, and everything is like meat and blood themed. And
Okay. I see.
that one is like all the enemies are kind of harder, but the stuff you get from them is better. So it's kind of like that trade off. So like me, who's played the game for 1,000 hours, and like knows how to fight all the enemies, I'm probably gonna pick the crimson every single time because like I know what I'm doing and I want the better stuff.
And is this like you mentioned that like some biomes are like more difficult than others? Like, is there an actual difficulty setting like within the game, or does it just kind of come into what you choose?
Yeah, so there's so when you're creating your character, there's softcore, medium core, and hardcore.
Medium
core.
Soft. All right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the soft core, you just drop money when you die, which is pretty superfluous. Medium core, you drop your items, which is pretty inconvenient and not fun. That's my least favorite thing about games like Minecraft. So I never play that.
Just dropping like hardcore, everything, like when you die, basically.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I'm gonna guess except everything in your hotbar, but maybe not even that. Maybe you just lose everything. And then hardcore is you die and your character is just deleted.
Oh damn.
Which is, I guess, fun in a way for a certain kind of person. And then, like, when you're creating your world, you can either have it a regular world, an expert world, or a master world, which are progressively more difficult. Like
the enemies are more, like they're tougher, or...
Yeah, like you do less damage and the enemies do more damage kind of thing.
Okay, I see. Huh. All right. I would say that does balance the game pretty efficiently then. I mean, like, maybe I shouldn't say balance, but like you can definitely like tailor it to much more of like an experience that you prefer instead of just like, oh, here, we're going to drop you in and hardly give you a tutorial. Now just deal with it kind of thing, Yeah,
I mean, it definitely adds to the replayability. I mean, the last two playthroughs I've done have literally just been to play through an expert world and then play through Master World.
See like how far you can get kind of thing.
Yeah, and I haven't finished the Master one because it's like really hard.
It sounds really hard.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely hit some brick walls in the expert one, but I got through it. I actually had to like look up strategies and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, fun game.
I mean, at the very least, like through my readings of the game and like you actually getting an opportunity to like sit down and explain it to me in a way that is like beyond just like telling it to me in like a Discord group call or something, like I can actually like understand like where you're coming from with your interests in the game. And like I believe I own the game, like it's probably sitting in my library like as we speak. So I don't know, I mean, if it's like if the multiplayer is fun enough, like and like we can like jump in on a game, I wouldn't be against giving it a try because it sounds a lot more interesting than I initially thought it was. Man,
you're right. I guess I've never talked about the game like this on like just Discord or in person or whatever.
Yeah, because overall, I mean, yeah, you've mentioned it to me, and I kind of expected that you would talk about it on the show, but you never really like went into detail with me about it. So now that I like know the stuff about it, I'm definitely more interested in it than I initially was. I will definitely admit that.
The premise of the show holds true. I am getting a chance to talk about games in a way I never would.
And that's what we're here for. What can I say? And I think that's a good point to stop and move on to the gaming news portion of the podcast, finally. For those of you that are uninitiated, we generally like to go over the more relevant things that are happening within the game sphere. Like if it is an older game and things haven't been coming out for it specifically, then maybe we can see like what the developers are up to, or, you know, like some other members of their team, like what else they might have been up to. Overall, you know, just to kind of give a bit of a more, I guess, like recent foray into the games that we talk about. So speaking of games that like don't have much in the ways of like news about them, going on to Hotline Miami, as we mentioned previously, it's been a while since both games have come out. You know, the latest installment of the Hotline Miami series has been out for 7 whole years, and the first release dating back even further, a whole 10 years. That's a whole decade of Hotline Miami being around, yet the developers themselves are remaining awfully quiet regarding the franchise. However, all hope is not lost yet, at least regarding advancements within the Hotline Miami team, as people who follow the developers on Twitter will see that they're still out there doing, you know, stuff and things, but just maybe not the stuff and things that we were expecting. So, of course, I think it's fair to say that most people that have played the game, or both games even, are more or less, I guess, like in a state of hopeful doubt that there will be any sort of sequel in the series, even though there's been several mentions from the developers themselves that they consider the second game to be like the end-all be-all of the series. And this has gone on long enough to the point where any sort of rumors and speculation that come up manage to take the spotlight, no matter how insignificant they may seem in the grand scheme of things. For example, in June of 2021, Devolver Digital, the publishers for the Hotline Miami series, posted a tweet to promote their upcoming E3 presentation, in which there is a photo of Nina Struthers sitting at a cubicle with a bunch of sticky notes surrounding her, you know, generic office environment. And if you look closely at a board behind her in the corner, you can make out the words Hotline Miami 3 written in marker. And, you know, if people aren't digging deep enough, then you might be surprised to know that there was even an elaborate prank done by a Twitter account under the name of Jacket Is Not Dead back in August of 2019, where they took an existing fan-made Hotline Miami movie trailer and disguised it as a teaser for an upcoming bit of news. And needless to say, it led a ton of people on to the point where the official Hotline Miami account had to tweet out that, yes, this is a cool trailer, but it is completely false as there is currently no sequel in development. I think it's fair to say that the whole concept of Hotline Miami 3 has become sort of a running joke within Devolver Digital, and because I stated earlier, the dev team has alluded several times to Hotline Miami 2 being the end-all be-all of the series. You know, considering that you have such a rich history with the games, Connor, you know, is this something that you feel like is necessary? Like, do you think that the game really needs a sequel? Or are you also in this kind of like hopeful doubt state of mind within the franchise?
Well, I think that's a very good way to put it, hopeful doubt. I would be shocked if they made a third one, because they have said on multiple occasions there will never be a Hotline Miami 3.
Right.
I'm shocked whenever they tweet anything, and it's usually only like on the anniversary of one of the games or something.
Right. Because whenever I was doing like my research, like I, of course, went to all of their Twitter accounts, and, you know, largely enough, like most of them are pretty scarcely updated. Like if they were updated, they were, like you said, like maybe once or twice a year for like an anniversary or like some other like behind the scenes announcement, like, oh, go watch this video or go check this thing out, you know, like, yeah, the game has been made, like it's still out there, you can still play the game, but as for anything else pertaining to them, like it's like, you know what, like I'm sure they're thinking like what else do you want us to do, you know? Like,
I mean, it is literally two guys. Denaton Games is two guys named Dennis and Jonathan. than a ton. So like anything they make is going to take a while.
No, for sure.
And like if they make anything, like I'm all for it. They did a really good job on these 2 games. I'm sure whatever else they put out, it will have a high level of polish and a lot of care. But I certainly do not expect it to be anything like Hotline Miami.
I see. It's funny that you mentioned that because, well, first of all, there is actually a link to a Reddit post where a user by the name of Tony Abyss, he actually goes into detail about various instances where the developers have made passing comments, just hinting at the notion that, like, yes, there will be no sequel, or just in general that there is no sequel planned necessarily. And that's not to say that you can't hold your breath, but if we're being honest here, it seems like you'll probably just end up gasping for air by the end of it, you know? But going back to what you were saying, like, despite all of that, it seems like the team still wants to develop games, you know, even though they may not be directly about Hotline Miami. Like, I'm sure, you know, if you follow him, you've already seen this, but Jonathan Soderstrom, he posted a tweet on New Year's Eve of 2021 where he announced a passion project that is being worked on by him and supposedly the rest of the team.
The one other guy.
Yeah. I mean, there are like a number of other guys like a part of it, like whether they're just within Devolver Digital, but I'm pretty sure that there are like, you know, like a couple other guys just like in there to help with like some of the more subtle aspects of it. But, you know, supposedly, like according to him, it might not meet the expectations of some people, but in his words, he even goes on to say that some people will be horrified and others delighted, which I'm sure is an exaggeration, but it's interesting to see nonetheless. You know, like it's cool to see that they're still making something. We don't even know if it's a game, to be honest. But
have you ever looked into the other works by Jonathan Soderstrom?
I've actually, I mean, I tried to, but it seems like most of the time, like whenever I was looking up anything about him, like it just all like ended up coming back to Hotline Miami.
He's made a lot of games, and most of them are pretty weird.
Oh, okay.
Like there's one that like the eyes of everyone in Asia or something like left them and traveled to the moon or something, and the game is about getting everyone's eyes back. Huh. And I think the whole game is like the screen is mostly black and everything's drawn in just like colored outlines.
Huh.
I don't know. Very strange. He's a very creative guy.
Well, at least he's doing something. I mean, you really don't find a lot of people that are still making games for the sake of just making them. And the fact that, you know, Hotline Miami reached the level of success that he actually did, I feel like I also read somewhere that, like, there was a point in time where, you know, he was making games and then he realized, like, he quite literally just, like, said to himself, like, he's like, man, I need to start making money on games. Mm-hmm. And that's where, you know, he decided to buckle down and work with the other guy to make Hotline Miami. And going back to this supposed game that he's been working on, I'm honestly not sure if there is any news about this supposed game, like as of that tweet being made. And to be honest, like, again, like it's kind of hard to search for, considering his history with just like the success of Hotline Miami, but it has been a while since then. So I'm sure if we were to hear anything about it, like if we're supposed to or whatever it might be, like I'm pretty sure that time will come up relatively soon. Like, you know, optimistically speaking, I feel like it's been a little while and he probably has something prepared.
I mean, I have no expectations, so I'm sure whatever it will be a delightful surprise.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's what he's aiming for, you know, because there may not be people like doing their research like how I am. Like they may have seen it on New Year's Eve and completely forgotten about it, but whenever it does eventually come out, I'm sure it'll be a pleasant surprise. On the subject of, you know, random updates here and there, the publisher behind Hotline Miami 1 and 2, Devolver Digital, has also been updating their website and Twitter with teasers to upcoming games and general news regarding the series they support. And overall, it seems like they stick to indie developer publishing and promotion, which is, of course, a great thing for these small teams as they need all the help they can get. They have a slew of upcoming games supposedly being released in 2022, such as Card Shark, Cult of the Lamb, McPixel 3, Return to Monkey Island, just to name a few. And Also worth mentioning, they relatively recently became a publicly traded company all the way back in November of 2021, which they claim is for the betterment of all investment purposes regarding games they're working on now, ones they couldn't consider before but now can, and of course any future endeavors that they decide to pursue. So, in their own words, the employees of Devolver Digital are still the majority owners in the company. From those of us at that first picnic table meeting to those that joined this year, everyone at Devolver Digital owns a stake in the company, its future, and its future's future. So, it's good to know that the publisher is at least putting out games still, and I don't know if that necessarily has anything to do with like Hotline Miami as a sequel or whatever it might be, but the fact that they're still on the face of this planet, you know, I think that is just an overall good thing to see, realistically.
I think Devolver's kind of a cool company.
Yeah, it seems like it.
I like supporting indie games is cool, and I don't think they like impose too many like, oh, we need to have this in the game kind of thing. You know.
Yeah. Do you know anything about the games that I listed, or any other games they might be putting out?
None of the ones you listed, and I can't remember any of their other games off the top of my head, but I know I've heard of others, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, with anything, these things all take time, and the fact is that regardless of when they come out, you can still check their website to see any single update that you would want to know about those games, so feel free to check that out. I might as well leave a link for that in the description. But
Heavy Bullets.
Yeah, that is one.
That's a game where you shoot your bullets, but they don't just like disappear. You know, they like hit the enemies but bounce off, and you gotta go pick up your own bullets to use them again for ammo.
Oh, interesting.
That's kind of like similar to Hotline Miami, and like it's how neon it is, and
oh, okay. In a way, like that description also kind of reminds me of the game Super Hot, because
yes,
there's a lot that has to do with just like, you know, the conservation of ammo, but also just like grabbing things like in your environment to use to your advantage.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not as simple as, oh, like your gun runs out of bullets, go find more ammo. It's like your gun runs out of bullets, now you have to throw your gun at the dude, and you have to go find some other thing to deflect his bullet that you can see coming towards you, because, you know, for people that don't know, the game pretty much moves in slow motion. It only moves anytime you move in the game. So, you know, you can see where the bullets are coming past you. And in VR, this is insane. But, like, you have to be able to react appropriately and grab the things that you need in order to, you know, survive whatever it is that experience is. And, like, games like that, I assume that's an indie company. But indie developers are the ones that make the games that I would say are one of the more profound ones out there. And I don't think that's an unfair assumption either. Like, I feel like a majority of people would agree with that. Ones that have played indie games, at least. But
yeah.
Now for some smaller news segments that aren't exactly like super recent, but I still found them interesting to share nonetheless. I'm just going to go ahead and rapid fire these off just for the sake of time. But we talked previously about the digital comic for Hotline Miami 2 that is for free on Steam as of 2015. The official comic series done by Dayjob Studio dives into the backstory of several factions on a path to confrontation, quote, ripped directly from the Steam description. It's all free to download. Feel free to check it out. It'll be saved in your Steam library. But other than that, a massive multimedia company, Complex, published a 30-minute documentary on their YouTube channel where they sat down with several members of the team behind the Hotline Miami series and talked everything to do with development, from ideas to pitches and everything in between. And this was also back in 2015, so it's nothing new, but like the comic, it could be new for those of you who had not seen it before. And we talked a lot about the soundtrack, but you might remember the artist Moon that's on the soundtrack. They actually announced a brand new album just a few weeks ago on their Twitter.
Oh, cool.
Which is slated to be officially released on May 18th. And it's supposedly their first album in 5 years and is appropriately named Come See. So if you like the music they put in the game and are interested in checking out their newest stuff, I'll leave a link to their Bandcamp where you can preview some of the tracks and pre-order the whole thing. And of course, you can also pre-save on Spotify if that's more your speed.
Yeah, I like the moon stuff in the games.
Yeah, I was curious if you had an opinion on it. It's like moon, but like made into an acronym, I guess.
I don't know. They it was like one of the artists that was in both games, which I think is an interesting distinction.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So like they have more relevancy outside of just like, oh, they slapped a couple songs in. Like it's like, no, they have stuck through with the development of the game.
Yeah, they're kind of like part of the game in a way, you know?
Like, yeah, absolutely.
I think that's pretty neat.
And for someone like me who hadn't played the game until just recently, I recognize that name from just listening to the soundtrack in the car, you know? So
yeah,
this is something.
You know, when they were making the first game, they were like so esoteric with the music they were picking. Like they found these seemingly random artists from like out of nowhere and put these cool songs into the games. I guess one way to curate your music, I don't know.
Oh, definitely. But there is a good amount of like YouTube content creators that go out of their way to try and use, I guess, like independent music. So like they want to just use whatever. Not only does it help with like copyright issues because they're not going to, you know, slap you with a copyright if they literally gave you the song to use, but you're also helping a smaller band or artist or whatever they might be to reach a wider audience just through the sheer like what you were already going to do already. Like if you kind of like help them you know, pull them up along with you, like that's of course like something that is great to see. And moving on from that, we move on to the Team Fortress 2 bit of news. I mean, honestly, like what is there to say in the way of news that isn't already said? You know, like there is like events and things that are out there, but you know, as Connor mentioned previously, there's only like it's been like 5 years since an actual update.
Yup.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, there's no shortage of players playing the game from my understanding. So unless you have anything else that you'd like to touch on, you know, I do have some like a specific topic that I'd like to get into, but you know, what do you have anything else to say about the like lack of content?
Not really. I mean, I guess it's at a point where there is so much in the game already. I mean, they're not really even towards the end of when they were like actually updating the game, they were kind of slow adding new weapons and stuff because it's kind of like, well, how many different things can we give each class without like messing up the balance of the game, because it's already so hard already. Like they have like 200 some weapons in the game,
and it has been around for like a ridiculously long time. So you know, like you're saying, how many things can you add to this game that's been around for over a decade? Like,
yeah, I mean, recently they've more or less just been relying on community content and adding different taunts and cosmetics to the games, because like people have gotten really good at creating stuff in Source and making like the characters do wacky things or giving them new cool clothes or whatever, you know. So
yeah.
And maps especially, like people are getting really good at making maps that, you know, are balanced, are interesting, and look fresh but not out of place. Like honestly, these people could be making games of their own, but they just love TF2 so much that they're dedicating their time and energy towards
just adding more content to this game that already has so much.
Yeah, and in some cases, you know, their passion is being rewarded by actually like making it, you know, their stuff gets made official. It's not just like a mod or like a community server kind of thing.
Well, that's good to see.
It's really in there.
Well, the thing that I wanted to touch on is, I guess I mean, with the amount of time that you've played in the game, I'm sure you've seen a good number of like bots that have been roaming around.
Yeah.
Like just overall, you know, there's just been a huge botting problem that has yet to really be fully addressed within the game. And for context here, I'll go on a little spiel. Since April 2020, the game has been enduring just large amounts of bot accounts entering like the casual matchmaking servers. And although bot accounts themselves, like they're nothing new in the world of online shooters. TF2 is most definitely included in that. A lot of people began to report a spike in activity doing just like all sorts of annoying things, like forcibly crashing the servers, spamming copy pastas and text chats, just pretending to be someone else even by copying other people's usernames, and of course just generally cheating at the game and using aimbots. And that kind of stuff is definitely annoying at best. But in June of 2020, Valve made all sorts of efforts to combat these bots, such as preventing people from changing their Steam username while being connected to any Valve matchmaking server, which of course helped a bit with this nonsense. But about 1 year later, many changes were claimed to be made by Valve, but people playing the game didn't really see much of a difference. This led to general criticism of the company, and more recently blaming them for being so hands-off with TF2 in general. Like, some would even say that Valve has supposedly abandoned additional support of the game, and the game is just being kept afloat by user-generated content, and you did just touch on that a little bit. So,
yeah.
Of course, I mean, having a company be less involved in a game than you'd like them to be is obviously frustrating, but how does this affect you personally? Like, do you see any problems in the game that need balancing or may need adjusted? Like, maybe even touching on the whole bot thing, do you see this as something that else needs to be addressed still, or is it just kind of dead in the water?
I mean, the bot thing is kind of a tough issue. I mean, I don't really know anything about game development or kind of trying to maintain the integrity of a huge platform like Steam.
Right.
But the bots, they either are a real nuisance on the server, or they just completely destroy a server and you got to move on. And the lack of any real action by Valve is kind of a complex issue that has to do with the structure of the company that I don't think we have time to get into.
Right,
but
right.
No one works on TF2 because no one has to work on TF2. So
okay,
it's kind of been an interesting thing because it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. It's kind of caused this great revival in community servers because back in the day, people would create their community servers with all kinds of wacky mods and maps and kind of make it their own space. Go play on a Valve official server if you don't like it, kind of thing.
I see.
And then
okay.
Valve, I don't know, 2015, 16, they updated their clients or their matchmaking system, I guess.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go into your Counter-Strike source menu from 2001 to find a server
just to play the game. Yeah
you just kind of go into the menu and hey, I want to play on these maps, or I don't want to play on these maps, and sign me up to play on literally any other ones, and it would find you an official Valve server within the parameters that you selected. And those are the servers that have been touched by this bot scenario.
Yeah.
And because it's only Valve servers, it's kind of caused, like I said, this renaissance of private servers. And it's been really great. These communities that were kind of dying have been revitalized in a lot of ways. A lot of new communities have popped up because of this. I play whenever I do play TF2, I exclusively play on Uncle Topia servers, which is servers run by this guy called Uncle Dane, he's the guy who recently got 10,000 hours in the game, I mentioned earlier.
Oh, okay. So it's the same guy.
Yeah, but he's the thing about his servers is that they're nothing crazy. They don't have all kinds of stupid mods or anything. They're very much just very similar to the regular game. And it's if that's what you want, go there. I don't know. I think it's kind of a good thing. It's allowed for this renaissance to kind of happen. But again, it is destroying the game for a lot of people, and it's kind of gross what like some of the bots like are called, or the shit they spew in chats.
Oh, okay.
Like some have like really horrible names. I don't know. It's a free game, and it's gonna be more susceptible to this kind of thing.
No.
What was the other
I get that.
thing you asked me?
I think overall I was just asking, like, how does this affect your kind of gameplay? Like, do you think that, does it affect, like, you playing it? Or are you just kind of like, like, is what it is? Like,
it definitely was at first, because it was at a point where I was like, oh, let me join like 4 servers in a row, and they all have bots in them, and it's like ruining the game. And then I started playing on the community servers again, and it was like, oh, this is really nice.
I see. Okay. So once you made the jump over to the community servers, it was kind of like, it wasn't like gone, but
it basically is gone.
But it is gone for your experience, basically.
Yeah, and like even on the Valve servers, players have gotten very good at countering techniques. I mean, like everyone will band together to kick a bot like as soon as possible. It's like people just get right on that, and like like you said, they have the technique where a bot will join a server and then name itself the same thing as another player, hoping that the other player gets kicked. But in that case, like, the players have counter strategies. It's like no one kick the bot except for the guy that it's copying its name from, so that we know for sure that that's the right one.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I guess you kind of have to make it work when, that's what you're provided, but at least there's alternatives. And, for a game like TF2 that has so much of a community behind it, that's not too surprising to hear.
Yeah, it's a big community. Lots of I don't know where I'm going with that. It's a big community. It's a cool community. Sometimes it's a fun game.
Well, let's go ahead and take that moment to move on to Terraria, or Terraria, depending on who you ask. But the bit of news that I have here, there's a few different things, and I would say that these are the most recent examples of news, just because there's a lot to touch on with more recent updates, including the 1.4.3 update that includes a collaboration with Clay Entertainment's game Don't Starve, which adds 25 new items from the game, along with a new Don't Starve-inspired world seed called The Constant, and a brand new boss called the Deerclops, which can be summoned in the ice biome for you to fight. Other than that, along with that patch, there also came a slew of just quality of life improvements, including support on Valve's very own Steam Deck, which is a console that I would absolutely love to get my hands on. Like, have you seen that thing? Because
that seems like your kind of thing.
I really want to play it, and it's not that, like, obviously I play a lot on Switch, but I've never been like a huge proponent to like playing games on the go. But I just like the idea that like you can have this like what is essentially a PC exclusively tailored for playing console games in your hand. Like, the fact that it's also basically a PC means that there's like huge opportunities for like customization and even like different like modding and installing. Like, people can probably run like Windows or Linux or whatever it might be. Like, they don't have to run the proprietary software, like, if they can get it to work.
Dude, do you think they're optimizing Lethal League for the Steam Deck?
Honestly, that would be kind of cool to see.
That would be sick.
Yeah, because for anyone that follows the channel, I haven't talked about it very much, but if you've paid attention, I've used different sound effects from Lethal League within like like censorship and whatever it might be. But I would be very happy to see that. Lethal League is actually available on Nintendo Switch, so that part is still covered, like with portable gaming, so to speak. But the Switch servers, like playing online, like they're not like super active, if they're active at all, to be honest. So I feel like there's a much higher demand for PC players playing on like the like online matchmaking and things like that. So that could be a workaround for that sort of thing. Like, you still get to play on the go, but at the same time, if you can get an internet connection, you can still play like relevant online matchmaking in your case, like if you're on PC, I'm on Steam Deck, like we could still fight each other.
Yeah.
I think that would be pretty cool.
I think Drake's getting a Steam Deck.
Really?
Yeah, I think he might be.
Dude, I mean, if he is,
maybe that might be a total fabrication by my brain. I don't know.
Well, I'll definitely have to ask him. If you haven't seen the episode with Drake, I strongly recommend you guys check that out. I don't remember what number it is exactly, but if you scroll back far enough, you're bound to see it. But
number 4.
Number 4. There's the infinite wisdom of Connor bursting through. But
fan of the show.
Yeah, exactly. But for those of you who are interested in Terraria on the Steam Deck, this means that you won't have to worry about the game being playable on a Steam Deck, but rather just how it will play in general. Like, if you're used to PC, I'm sure it'll be a bit of a learning curve, but the game has been on weirder consoles like the 3DS, so, and even I think that you can play it on mobile devices like phones as well. Yep. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I mean, I won't be too surprised if they make it work in a sufficient way. Like, this game has become so accessible now that like it's hard to struggle finding a copy of the game regardless of whatever platform you may have. So
I'm gonna play it on my smart fridge.
Honestly, I would love to see that.
Like Skyrim. Skyrim's on everything now.
Play Lethal League right next to it. But along with that, there's also Steam Workshop support for the game now as of July of last year. And this means that you can customize the game to your heart's content, provided that you know how to use Steam Workshop well enough, of course. But details on how to use it, along with any other things that I've mentioned regarding the various updates and things, they will be linked in the description for you to view and understand to completion. I can't say I've ever played around with Steam Workshop, but that is a really cool thing to see is an option for many people, considering the fact that I feel like they're not pumping out like a ton of updates with Terraria anymore, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
No. I mean, I think they're on like their 3rd update that was supposed to be the last one, and there still might be more, so like, who knows?
I see. So it's almost like how Megadeth constantly makes their last tour all the time.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, this is the last one, I promise. Like,
yeah, they had like, yeah, they just keep doing it. Like, no. They named the last one Journey's End, and I think they're still working on the game. So
yeah, I did read a bit about that, and I thought that was like the most recent update, but it's not. And
no, it's
not.
That's
how I learned about all the new stuff, But I mean, I don't know. It does seem like the game still has a future, regardless of if there's going to be like a substantial amount of updates, which is great for the fans and great for people who are new to the game like myself. So I'm excited to see where that goes. But ultimately, I'd say that's all the time that we have for today. Connor, now's the chance for you to plug any last minute promos for your social medias or whatever things you have, or if you want to just give a proper send off to the audience, be my guest. Now's your chance to do that.
I guess
and you don't have to share anything if you don't want to. Like, if you just want people to enjoy the episode as is, then so be it.
Man, I want to say something stupid like watch Jump Higher Productions, but like they're already here. Who am I introducing this to?
I mean, you could just say subscribe to Jump Higher VG.
Yeah, you should do that. I've watched every video except for the first one and the most recent one, oddly enough.
The first one and the last one.
Yeah, but Adnan does a good job and he puts a lot of work into his craft. So
I appreciate that.
If you're just listening to the podcast, you're missing out.
Well, I think that's a very kind way to end everything off. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode, Connor. It's been a lot of fun. I am really glad that we finally got the chance to actually have you on the show after much speculation and, figuring out your games and all that. It's nice to see it all come to fruition finally. So,
yeah.
I hope you had a good time.
I am fascinated to see what ends up getting cut.
Yeah. I'm already picturing it in my head. Because for context, this episode, raw audio is officially 2 hours and 58 minutes exactly as of that moment. So, yeah, we're going to see what happens. But Yeah, thanks again for being on the show. I hope you liked it on here.
I want to thank you for having me, and I would come back anytime.
Perfect. Well, as for you, the viewer, I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer or have some recommendations for the next episode, feel free to leave a comment down below or message me on Instagram or Twitter at Jump Higher Productions. That's Jump Higher PROD. We'll be back next time when we find someone that we can dive deep into the discussion with, and hopefully we can continue to share our personal connections to video games with you all. So, thank you so much for listening, and bye for now.